That's 27-year-old Hannah Freeman after she was given a 7-day sentence. She's a total daddy's princess. Let me tell you what she did.
What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. How you guys doing? If you guys are brand new here to the channel, you guys don't know what we do, don't worry, I'm gonna break it down for you guys, man. We talk about the most scariest and creepiest videos on the net, on the web, from YouTube videos to TikTok videos, IG reels, Facebook, anything weird, unusual, unexplained, you can find right here on this channel. Just want to thank all my supporters who's coming back to the channel, watching the videos entirely, man. Commented down below. Greatly appreciate the support. Found this video for you guys today, man. Let's do what we do best, seekers. Stay with me, y'all. Let's seek the truth.
This McDonald's employee recorded this video and posted it on Instagram right before murdering her manager.
I got sent home early yesterday. I got sent home early today by the same person. I'm telling you, she's a bully. This isn't funny. She needs to understand that just because she's a mother and got children doesn't mean that she can come in the store, you know, disrespecting people, talking to them like everybody's beneath her. Don't have to stop. She's a bully. I'm telling you. She's a bully. She could keep being a bully if she wants to, but that is going to catch up to her. Because it ain't funny at all. It ain't.
And this was all because she was sent home early from work. On July 10, 39-year-old Jennifer Harris and 26-year-old Afeni Mohammed were scheduled to work the same shift at McDonald's in Michigan. Jennifer was a manager and had been working at McDonald's for over 15 years at this point. During their shift that morning, apparently there was an argument and Afeni was asked to leave work early. Afeni left the McDonald's but then apparently returned with a knife, wearing a mask, and she entered through one of the employee entrances and stabbed Jennifer over 15 times. This was all going down in front of customers at the drive-thru, and one customer tried to stop her, but it was already too late. Unfortunately, Jennifer did lose her life, and Afeni was charged with first-degree premeditated murder and is now being held on a $25 million bond. And let me remind you, this was all over a McDonald's job, a most likely part-time job. Let's normalize quitting our jobs when we're not happy, because it's not worth it.
This is the preach. So a woman lost her life over a McDonald's job, like she said, pretty sure it was part-time. Just because she was getting sent home early. I don't know why she was getting sent home early, but it's not worth it, man. If you ain't happy at your job, just leave. Cause it looks like you'll just make yourself go crazy and go down a dark road.
A story about the blind woman who could see ghosts. So this girl who was blind at birth lived with her father on a single ranch house. So because she was blind at birth, she had spatial awareness. Pretty much she knew how far apart everything was based on what she touched. One day in the living room, the blind woman was talking to a ghost named Ellie. So Ellie said to the blind woman her name and asked her why her face was so messed up. So the blind woman then asked, "Why is my face messed up? What's wrong with it?" And at that point, the father then heard the conversation and snagged the blind woman out of the room and said, "Who were you talking to?" The blind woman then replied, "I was speaking to Ellie," and then the father laughed. Over the course of the next few months, the blind woman started speaking to over 13 ghosts. And each time she would speak, her father would get very, very upset at her for speaking to ghosts. So one day, the blind woman fell in the kitchen and had to call the paramedics. And once the paramedics arrived there, she asked, "Can my dad come with me to the hospital?" The paramedic then replied, "Your dad's been dead for 6 years." Make sure to like for a part 2.
Was she talking to a spirit?
Which countries have the most serial killers? On average, in your lifetime, you will walk past 36 murderers / serial killers. So that actually got me thinking, which countries have the most serial killers? And of course, there's a study, and here are the results. The top 21 countries with the most serial killers, so the countries with the least, are Sweden, the Netherlands, Scotland, Poland, Spain, and Hungary. Placing 15th to 11th, we have Austria, Brazil, Mexico, China, and France. Okay, now this is the top 10 countries that have produced the most serial killers. We have Russia, India, Australia, Germany, and Japan. Placing in the top 5, we have Italy with 97, Canada with 106, South Africa with 117, England with 166, and the United States with 3,204. Now send this to someone who you know lives in one of these countries because you made the list. Elon!
That's a shame. I knew USA was gonna be on top.
This man in a wheelchair got hit by a semi-truck. In 2007, 21-year-old Ben Carpenter, a wheelchair user from Michigan, experienced one of the most terrifying ordeals imaginable. While crossing a busy intersection, Ben's wheelchair accidentally became lodged in the front grille of a semi-truck. The driver, completely unaware, began driving, dragging Ben along the highway at speeds reaching nearly 50 miles per hour. For 4 agonizing miles, Ben was pinned to the front of the massive vehicle, unable to escape or signal for help, as wind and debris battered his face and body. Witnesses on the road were horrified, some thinking it was a prank or a stunt, until one frantic driver finally managed to pull in front of the truck and wave it down. When the truck finally stopped, Ben was still sitting upright, dazed but alive. Miraculously, he sustained no major injuries. First responders and bystanders were in disbelief. How could someone survive being hurled down a highway, inches from death, for that long? The sheer luck, or perhaps divine intervention, of that day made national headlines, and Ben Carpenter's name became forever tied to one of the most unbelievable survival stories in modern history.
That's the scene I think about. He was sitting in front, and the truck driver had no idea. What was he listening to, man? See, that's what you gotta be aware, bro. He had no idea. Right in front of the grill of his truck.
This is why you should be scared of driving down dark roads in Ireland at night. Jane said that one night in the early 2000s, her and her husband were driving down a dark road in Ireland at night. She said that they always played deep, intricate house music to zone out while they drove. They didn't really have conversations on journeys. It was almost like meditation. The headlights of their van lit the immediate darkness. Just a few meters ahead on the hard shoulder, an old woman came into view as she shuffled along in darkness. Jane said that her and her husband acknowledged her simultaneously. They said, "What the heck is she doing here?" Jane said that almost immediately after their acknowledgement of the old lady, time slowed down from about 120 kilometers per hour to walking speed. She said that it was almost as if they had hit an invisible wall but without impact. She said that time jumped forward in increments, like watching a scratched DVD. The hunched old lady was now approaching Jane's side view mirror. She said that the old lady's head detached from her body, but on a long neck. It was as if a human head was attached to a snake. Jane said that her head, still facing the ground, slithered up to the window, bringing them face to face. She had green eyes that glowed in the darkness, with vertically elongated black pupils, set into a face covered in scales, with murky shades of green. And as her mouth opened wider and wider, Jane saw teeth that were tightly packed, sharp, and protruded more and more the wider she opened her mouth. Then, all of a sudden, time resumed, and they continued on their journey.
Gruesome Facts You Didn't Know, Part 225. In 1559, King Henry II of France was participating in a jousting tournament. During a match, he was severely wounded in the eye and brain by a splintered lance. He died of his injuries 10 days later, with his death leading to the decline of jousting as a sport in France. Actress and Playboy centerfold Yvette Vickers was last seen in 2010 after withdrawing from her family and friends. When neighbor Susan Savage noticed cobwebs on the mailbox, she went inside to investigate. Upstairs, she discovered her mummified body. Lieutenant Colonel William Henry Rankin is one of only 2 known persons to survive falling from the top of a cumulonimbus thunderstorm cloud. He was forced to eject from his jet when his engine failed. It took him 40 minutes to finally reach the ground. During his descent, he suffered from frostbite, and severe decompression caused his mouth, eyes, ears, and nose to bleed.
For 40 minutes?
This is one of the strangest and most mysterious houses in the world. This is the Winchester Mansion. Found in San Jose, California, this house is over 138 years old. But its backstory leaves a lot of people really confused. So this lady's name is Sarah Pardee. In 1862, Sarah got married to William Winchester. William's family was really rich and famous. And the reason for that is because his family invented the Winchester rifle, which was really popular to use in war at the time. Unfortunately, just less than 20 years after Sarah and William got married, William passed away from tuberculosis, leaving Sarah with a lot of money. Immediately after William died, Sarah moved all the way across the country to San Jose, California, where she bought some land and began building a house. But the thing is, Sarah never stopped building the house. In fact, the home was under construction for over 38 years. But what's inside the house is the weird part. So the house, or mansion itself, is 24,000 square feet. The house has over 160 rooms, 2,000 doors, 47 fireplaces, 6 kitchens, and over 10,000 windows. Most people's houses look like they were planned out, but it seemed as if the Winchester Mansion got bigger and bigger as time went on. Now the reason for the house being mysterious is because of how it's structured on the inside. There are doors that open up to brick walls and 12-foot drops to the outside. There are also several staircases that lead to nowhere, and multiple secret rooms. To this day, people are discovering more and more rooms every single year inside of the home. But the biggest mystery is why Sarah Winchester made her house so big and confusing. Many people believe that Sarah's house was actually haunted by the spirits of those killed by her husband's gun, as the Winchester rifle was really popular in war and claimed a lot of lives. This is backed by many witnesses who have reported seeing lights turn on by themselves, hearing strange mysterious voices and footsteps, and even seeing ghosts roam the halls. Many experts believe that Sarah Winchester was trying to build her house into one giant, complicated maze. In doing this, the ghost would get confused and wouldn't know where to find her. But the real reason for this house being so weird is unknown. Today, thousands of people go to tour the house on a yearly basis, but unfortunately we'll probably never know the real reason as to why the Winchester house is so mysterious.
That's a maze. I would not want to live there.
So I just got the most terrifying DM of my life today. Basically, someone sent me this screenshot. They say that while they were in the middle of watching my video on Annabelle, they randomly got a notification that said that liquid had been detected in their lightning connector. Now, what's so weird about this is they claimed that their phone had not been anywhere near water all day when they got this message. And the message happened right at the start of my Annabelle video, which, if you don't know, is where I showed actual footage of Annabelle leaving her case. And for a while, people have claimed that that footage is cursed. So the fact that this happened is very, very unsettling to say the least.
Horror movies that would be impossible to survive, part 4. A Quiet Place. Now for me, I just talk way too much, so having the fact that I have to be quiet or I'm gonna be unalived by some alien creatures that only react to sound, I'm cooked. Also, if this happens in the spring or the summertime, I have allergies. Bro, I'm sneezing everywhere. You don't want to be anywhere around me if The Quiet Place ever happened. You then have Cabin in the Woods 2012. You are set up from the beginning. You are not supposed to survive. And even the characters that did end up surviving at the end of this movie, they were not supposed to. They had every creature, every maniac, every slasher, every anything you can think of, all being ported to that cabin. And then as soon as they got to the mainframe, everything was let free. And if you know the ending of Cabin in the Woods 2012, you know it was absolutely insane. You then have the Descent. Now for me personally, I'm not going cave diving. On top of going into a cave that no one has ever explored yet. You then go into the cave with lighters and all this other stuff that you think is going to protect you. And you get inside of the cave and you get lost. People start losing their mind because the flashlights start losing battery. You then run into some weird humanoid-like creatures known as the Crawlers. That's like a vampire-ish creature. And let's be honest, you're done.
Yep. Especially the Quiet Place, man. If you ain't quiet, it's cooked, buddy. We ain't surviving. Maybe he's at the hotel or something. Hiding. I seen that, bro. I don't know what made him freaking hide in this hotel room, but I'm out, bro. I'm hitting the jets. In the middle of the night again, bro? He must like running for his life.
What is the scariest game you've ever played? I get this question almost every time I post a video or stream. And even though I've probably played well over 100 horror games, it's probably something like Dead Space, Outlast, or PT, right? It's actually something you might not have heard of. The scariest game I've ever played is a game called Lost in Vivo. But what makes this game so terrifying? Lost in Vivo takes inspiration from many different horror classics and puts them into one horrifying package. Every different type of scare you can imagine is in this game. It's also one of the only horror games I've ever played that gets scarier the longer you play. If you're not someone that gets scared easily, give this one a try.
Oh, Austin Vivo. Should I try the House Seekers?
Guys, what is going on with children? Because I just heard the story of these 4 girls in the 5th grade that came up with a plan to unalive another boy in their class, all because he cheated on one of the girls. First of all, who is even dating that seriously in the 5th grade? How do these kids even know what cheating is? We're talking about 10-year-olds. So this all happened in Arizona at Legacy Traditional School when a group of 4 girls, all aged 10 and 11 years old, were overheard by other students planning to stab another boy to death during recess. Apparently, each girl had a role in this plan. One was in charge of bringing the knife to school. Another girl was supposed to be the lookout. The 4th girl would be the one taking his life. Apparently, they had gloves ready so that fingerprints wouldn't be left behind, and they set a date for this entire thing. When other students overheard this crazy plan, they told teachers and police were called. The most chilling part about all of this, well, there's 2. Number 1 being that the girls knew they had to wear gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints behind. And the second part is that 3 out of the 4 girls showed remorse, but the 4th girl was laughing and smiling throughout the interrogation. They were arrested, but then were released to their parents, and then they were suspended from school. And let me tell you, this reminds me a lot of the Slender Man case in 2014 when 2 12-year-old girls lured their friend to a park and stabbed her 19 times.
The average person has about
Insane.
6,000 thoughts per day, and according to psychologists, about 80% of them are negative. Hear me out. Expressing gratitude towards loved ones gives you an immediate increase in happiness. And if you don't believe me, go try it and then try to come back here and tell me I'm wrong. Social rejection can feel like physical pain, and I, for one, am a firm believer in the research that shows that acetaminophen, like Tylenol, can actually dull this pain as it would a headache. Married people are more likely to self-pleasure than people who live alone, okay? So just keep that one in mind. Humans have this automatic reaction to default to assume somebody is telling the truth, and we will automatically second-guess ourselves the moment somebody disagrees, which is why gaslighting can be so dangerous. Having backup plans can actually hinder your main goal. Having a plan B makes it much less likely for plan A to succeed, because in your head you're like, oh, well, I have plan B to fall back on. No, you gotta have plan A if you really want it to go. Sarcasm kind of gets a bad rap for being like rude or negative, but it can actually increase your creativity and encourage abstract thought, especially when you're using it with people that you trust. Nowadays, the average high schooler has about the same level of anxiety as a 1950s psychiatric patient, and honestly, I'm not sure what that means about today's society or about how they treated psychiatric patients.
Russ McKame, the creator of the most intense haunted house in the entire world, was just arrested for attempted murder. Russ created the horror experience McKame Manor, which is essentially torture. The actors are allowed to physically harm you, they can shave your eyebrows, make you eat stuff, hold you underwater, and all of this can go on for up to 10 hours. And now Russ has been charged with SA and attempted murder of 2 separate women. This did not take place at the house, though. This was in his personal life. But people have been worried about Russ's behavior for years. In a Hulu documentary about the house, multiple people sat down and said that they thought Russ may have bad intentions with the house. One woman claimed that she used the safe word multiple times, which is supposed to allow you to leave, but she was ignored. She eventually had to go to the hospital because of her injuries, and they were so bad that the hospital called the police. And all of this is allowed to happen because you have to sign a 20+ page waiver in order to even go into the house, and it lists hundreds of things that they can do to you. But people travel thousands of miles to get to the house, so they may feel a little bit of pressure to sign it because they went all that way to be there. Russ's bond was initially set at $1,000, but after the second woman came forward, it was set to $100,000. But Russ says everything said about him in the Hulu documentary was false, and now he's suing them for over $8 million.
He was decapitated and eaten on the bus. Timothy Richard McLean Jr. was born on October 3rd of 1985 in Winnipeg, Manitoba. He was described as outgoing, full of life, and adventurous. Tim worked as a carnival worker, and this was a job that matched his energetic personality and love of travel. On the evening of July 30th of 2008, 22-year-old Tim boarded a Greyhound bus that was headed to Winnipeg. He had just gotten off of work and was ready to head back home. The journey was long, so Tim chose a seat in the back of the bus. He spent most of his trip just listening to music in his headphones and texting his friends. The bus made a stop in Erickson, Manitoba, and a man by the name Vince Lee would board the bus. Vince was sitting in the front but eventually made his way back next to Tim after a rest stop. Tim ended up falling asleep and had his head resting on the window pane with his headphones over his ears. Without warning, Vince took out a large knife and started stabbing Tim repeatedly. The other passengers on the bus were thrown into chaos and panic once they realized what was happening. The bus driver ended up pulling to the side of the road, and he and those other passengers fled that bus. Once everyone was outside, Vince started to decapitate Tim's head, then showed his head through the window so that everyone could see, and then he started to eat his flesh. Once police arrived, the passengers of that bus were outside crying and throwing up while Vince was still inside of that bus consuming Tim. Vince refused to get off of the bus, which resulted in a police standoff for several hours. About 5 hours later, Vince tried to break through a window to escape, but that's when he was arrested. Parts of Tim's body were placed in plastic bags, and his ears, nose, and tongue were found in Vince's pockets. Tim's eyes and a part of his heart were never recovered, and they just assumed that Vince consumed them. Once Vince was arrested, it was revealed that he was a recent immigrant from China, and he was suffering from an untreated schizophrenia. Vince claimed that he did this to Tim because he was given divine instructions because he believed that he was an evil force threatening humanity. Vince was charged with second-degree murder but was not found responsible due to his mental illness. The NCR verdict meant that Vince would not be incarcerated but instead would be in a secure psychiatric facility. Many believed that the ruling was too lenient, while others argued that it highlighted the need for compassion and better mental health care. After all that, Vince ended up being released from the psychiatric facility and given a new identity.
There's a really famous mystery called the Dyatlov Pass. It's about these 9 really experienced hikers in the 50s. They set off on this journey and they reached the first checkpoint, but they didn't make it to the second checkpoint. And there was a big search that goes out to make sure they're okay. The army gets involved and they go and follow the route to find the hikers. And they come across these prints in the snow that led down the mountain. And some of the prints were bare feet, some had 1 shoe and 1 barefoot. And it's all 9 of the hikers, and they find 3 of the hikers, and they're all deceased, and there's one who's naked, there's one who's up in one of the trees, and there's these deep gouges on the tree as if some animal had been scratching at this tree. There's more footprints that lead away from those 3, and the footprints lead where the other 6 hikers were, and they're all deceased as well. And the women were wearing men's clothing and vice versa. Some of their clothes had trace levels of radiation, and some of them had parts of their face removed, it looked like. Lips, nose, ears, it almost looked like surgical precision removal. There was a person in there who their chest had basically been caved in, but there's no sign of anything that could have done this damage. And suddenly the Soviet government says, we're going to shut this investigation down. All we know is that the 9 hikers who died from an unknown, unnatural force. Sealed.
Which was? They found traces of radiation on top of that mountain, so what was going on there? No questions. Something peeking.
She lit her daughter's essayer on fire. So this is Maria and this is her daughter Veronica. And when her daughter was 13 years old, she was held at knife point by their neighbor and he essayed her to the tune of the R word I can't say on TikTok. Now, it was reported and he ended up serving 9.5 years in prison. But after he got out, he started harassing the mom at the bus stop, saying things like, oh, how's your daughter? How's she doing? Really messed up stuff, and to the mom's point, showing zero remorse for what he did. Then he got off the bus, and he went into a local bar. That's when Maria got off the bus and went to a gas station. She bought a gallon of gas, and she had a lighter. And she walked up to him at the bar, poured gas on his head, and lit him on fire. Then she just walked out and started strolling down the street. The dude ends up with 90% of his body burned, and several days later, he dies at the hospital. When police find her, she admits to the whole thing, says that she just really wanted to hurt him, not unalive. She ends up getting 9.5 years, but she gets out in about half the time.
Creepy last words people said right before dying. One evening, Jim Woodford, a wealthy atheist man who had contracted a nerve disease, was surveying a property that he wanted to sell. He had become quite dependent on painkillers as a way to manage his pain. He was sitting in his truck watching the sunset when he decided to take more painkillers. He said that he waited for the relief to set in, but instead of relief, he felt like his feet were on fire. He said that he looked down to see if his truck was on fire, and then the feeling of fire spread rapidly throughout his whole body. body and seized his lungs. He said that he realized that he had overdosed. Jim said that all of the sudden he became hyper aware of all of his shortcomings in life. And although he hadn't prayed since he was a kid, he cried out the words, "God forgive me," before collapsing onto the steering wheel. Jim said that his spirit left his body and plunged into a realm of darkness, where the land looked scorched. As he walked, he came to what looked like a pit. The walls of the pit looked like black coal, he said. As he looked down, he saw the dim flicker of a red light. He then heard the sound of two large doors creaking open. He said that a large demonic creature that had a body made of fire and smoke began crawling out of the pit. He said that it was so hideous and evil looking that not even Hollywood could replicate it. And it was sniffing, as if it was searching for him. It finally locked eyes with him. Jim said that he could just feel its hatred for him and all of mankind. It started crawling faster towards Jim. He said that the creature got out of the pit and stood before him. It knew his name. It said, "Jim, we're here for you. This is your time with us." Jim was terrified and he cried out, "God help me." Just then, Jim said that the creature was struck with a beam of light and 3 angels appeared and saved him. He said that they took him to heaven and one of the angels reviewed Jim's life with him. Jim realized that he had not done enough in life and that he was very selfish and materialistic. Jim said that he also encountered Jesus and he told him that it was not yet his time. Jim said that he was sent back to his body and he woke up in the hospital. He had been clinically dead and on life support. When he spoke to the neurologist after, he said that Jim had no brain activity. After Jim recovered, he became a Christian and wrote a best-selling book called Heaven, An Unexpected Journey.
Wow. Change this whole belief system. That one experience, man, can change everything to a person. Where we at?
That's 27-year-old Hannah Freeman after she was given a 7-day sentence. She's a total daddy's princess. Let me tell you what she did, but first, she's a 4th grade teacher from North Ridgeville, Ohio. So she and her boyfriend had broken up in April of 2024, and on November 26th of that year, she had gone to his apartment. They kind of had some words, and then he thought she left. But when he looked out, he saw her getting into his vehicle, and she stole 2 backpacks that each had a laptop in them, his medication, wallet, his car keys. So he called police to report what she did. He told police that she had been going to his place of work and following him home and basically stalking him. He later found out that she racked up over $1,000 on his credit card at Amazon. And then the very next day, November 7th, she had followed him to work, and I guess he looked out and saw her sitting in his vehicle, so he once again called the police. She denied being in his vehicle or stealing things out of his car the night before, and she even told police that she was invited to be there where he works and that they had had lunch together at Raising Cane's. But the ex said that is absolutely not true. So the police ended up looking at video surveillance footage that showed that she came to her ex's work 33 different times on 19 different days over a 30-day period. So she ended up getting arrested that day and received several felonies. The charges include menacing by stalking, 2 counts of burglary, 2 counts of aggravated theft, and identity fraud. She was indicted in December and took a plea deal in June of 2025, where she pleaded guilty to 3 misdemeanors: disorderly conduct, obstructing official business, and possessing criminal tools. And come to find out, this isn't the first time Hannah Freeman has had trouble with the law, despite her dad being the chief of police. But I'll do a different video for that, otherwise this one's going to end up being really long. So come back later for a part 2. But anyway, at her sentencing hearing, the judge sentenced her to 18 months of probation or community control, with the first 7 days to be spent in jail. And her attorney lost it. He immediately tried to withdraw her plea and said that he and the prosecutor had agreed there would be no jail time. And the judge is like, okay, well, you guys didn't discuss that with me. I'm the one who gives the sentence. And they go back and forth for a couple minutes arguing about it until the judge finally just says, this is done. Now let me back up real quick. Right before the judge announced the sentence, he gave Hannah the opportunity to speak, and she was literally reading something off a piece of paper. Now, like I said, I'm going to make another video about her dad, who is the chief of police, and her mother, who has a history of getting arrested for shoplifting. And we'll also talk about what she did in December of 2022 when she got a noise violation and tried to get out of being arrested by telling everybody, my dad's the police chief, so I won't get in trouble. So make sure you come back for that. I'm going to end this by saying, I guess it doesn't matter who her dad is because she got in trouble. And 7 days in jail is a slap on the wrist for what she did. I've seen people get life sentences who don't respond like that.
Forced to wear. When Jim Carrey played the Grinch, he said he had to sit through 8 hours of painful makeup sessions every day. He said putting on the makeup felt like he was being buried alive. The suit was so itchy and painful that after the first day of filming, he kicked a hole through the wall and was going to quit the movie. So Jim Carrey hired a CIA expert who trained him on how to deal with torture. Buddy Ebsen played the original Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz. However, you never actually see him in the movie. This is because the original Tin Man outfit and makeup contains real aluminum, which is extremely toxic. This caused Buddy to be rushed to the hospital where he almost died.
Oh. Those actors, man. Those prosthetics.
Top 5 countries with the longest school days. Australia 6.5 hours. France 8 hours. South Korea 8 hours. Kenya 8 hours. China 9.5 hours.
Here's why you should stop rubbing
that.
your eyes.
That was no joke. You seriously need to stop rubbing your eyes as much, and here's why. Trust me, you might want to favorite this video because you might need this as a reminder in the future. Let's be honest, we're all guilty of this at some point. But I bet you didn't know that continually rubbing your eyes can actually cause really bad damage to your cornea. In fact, it can thin out your cornea, causing it to bulge. I mean, let's go back to the MRI footage. This is someone rubbing their eye. Visibly being able to see the pressure it puts on your eye. And the way that the eye can actually change shape. Increasing the pressure on your eye by 20 times. And it gets worse if you rub your eyes with your knuckles or the back of your hands. So although the occasional rub probably won't do you any harm, consistently doing it and consistently doing it hard could lead to potential vision loss. So saying this to literally anyone you know because for their eyes' sake, they need to see this. Elon!
This woman who recently competed in the Olympics in Paris was just murdered. This is 27-year-old Rebecca Cheptegei, and she was a marathon runner in Uganda. Rebecca competed in the women's marathon in the Olympics, and she finished in 44th place. Not long after returning from Paris, on August 31st, she was set on fire by her boyfriend. They identified this man as Dixon Edema, and apparently they were arguing over a piece of land. The attack happened outside of Rebecca's house, and it was said that her daughter tried to help her and save her, but this man had kicked her and also tried to beat her as well. It was said that Rebecca was found by neighbors who heard the arguing, and they were the ones who put out the fire. These burns were so severe it covered 80% of her body, and that's why she did not survive. But her boyfriend was also burned, but it only covered about 30% of his body, and he is now in stable condition. This is so sad, and violence towards women in Uganda is very common. There's actually been a few athletes who have been murdered by their partners in the last few years.
Maps that needs to change, man. She was literally in the Olympics, and then her whole freaking life trajectory changed, man. That's just for her.
Change the way you see the world. This is a unique visual that shows what the Roman Empire citizens believed was the entire world. This is what Chile looks like stretched across all of Europe. This is what all the uninhabited land in the United States looks like. This map shows the largest employer in each US state. These are the average train speeds across Europe. This map shows the distribution of ticks that are infected with Lyme disease across the United States. This map shows in the United States how many people commit violent crimes per 100,000 residents. This is a topographic map of Europe. This map shows the percentage of population in each Europe country that has never used the internet before. This map is comparing the populations of cities in Greece and Turkey with each little square representing about 250,000 people. This map shows the most popular streaming services across all the countries in Europe. Can you guess where this puzzle piece is from? You're able to guess what country this is just by the shape.
If you haven't heard about this,
I couldn't get those last two. Could you?
Police across the world are warning people of this literally as we speak, and you would never even realise you've been scammed
until this. So there is a new scam which only takes one person to do it in one simple move. And what it does is allow hackers to get into your phone, get access to all your personal information, cards, any single thing you own. So how this works is you'll get a package outside your door, like you would, from a brand. It could be Amazon, it could be Pretty Little Thing, anything that you're buying.
Okay.
It could be from a company that you buy stuff from regularly, so you just think, oh, I'm a loyal customer, give me a free gift. You open it up, there could be something inside. It might be a t-shirt, it might be a hoodie, it might be some shoes, whatever. Then there'll be a QR code in there that says, thanks for your loyalty, please scan it. Obviously you're going to scan it. Why wouldn't you? Well, if you scan this QR code, that's where this happens. They will then be able to get into your phone from scanning that link. You literally would not be able to tell that this has happened to you until you see the money going out of your account or something like that. So yeah, if you don't order a parcel, just be wary if there's a QR code in there that it's telling you to scan. Do your research, please, because it could save you a lot of money. Now, of course, please share this video around with anybody you know, friends and family, because I know some of the older generation would scan it in an instant. And I will keep you updated.
China has just had to urgently
Nothing is left for free.
400,000 people after they were hit by one of the most powerful super typhoons in over a decade. And for perspective, a super typhoon is equivalent to that of a Category 5 hurricane. All schools in the areas that made landfall were shut, trains, boats, and flights were suspended, and all tourist attractions have been closed down. The winds near its center reached a staggering 145 miles per hour, and this typhoon has doubled in strength after it killed more than 16 people in the Philippines last week. It's now predicted to move along and hit Vietnam this weekend.
Uncommon human traits. Being able to move one eyebrow, 25% of people. Growing a full beard, 1 in 5 men. Having dimples, 1 in 5 people. Going bald, 1 in 8 men. Having an outy belly button, 1 in 10 people. Being left-handed, 1 in 10 people. Having curly hair, 1 in 10 people. Having blue eyes, 1 in 10 people. Having green eyes, 1 in 50 people.
That's very rare. Green eyes, 1 in 50, man. That just shows you the rarity. I see blue eyes often, but never green eyes, man. It's very rare if I see somebody with green eyes.
Did you know these facts? The Boeing factory is so large they had to install a one-of-a-kind air circulation system to stop clouds from forming inside of the building. This is the world's smallest drawbridge in Bermuda. The US Navy is known to have used Xbox controllers to control the periscopes on submarines. James Cameron was homeless when he wrote The Terminator. He sold the rights for $1 on the condition that he was the one to direct the movie. A race was held in 1888 between a pigeon and a bee for 3 miles, where the bee won by 25 seconds. Camels have 3 eyelids that helps protect their eyes from the blowing sand. Cherries are dried with helicopters. It would take you 18 months to walk the Great Wall of China. The USA speaks more than 350 different languages. Scientists are out there making arguments that we may have more than 5 senses, one of them being magnetoreception, which is the ability to sense magnetic fields, and the other is chronoception, which is the ability to sense time passing.
You won't believe what this man saw during the 2024 solar eclipse. Reddit user Blakester731 said that him and a couple of friends went to watch the solar eclipse at a fishing spot out in the backwater in Tennessee. It was a secluded area that also hosts a small Trail of Tears memorial. They passed the stone monument on their way to go fishing, which acknowledged the removal of the Cherokee from their native land and the tragedies that occurred there. He said that him and his friends gave it their private respects and moved along to the fishing spot. Time passed like any other day out fishing, and they were having a good time. Towards the afternoon, the dark shape of the moon started to move closer to the sun. The woods all of a sudden became very quiet. The sounds of birds, flies, and cicadas all seemingly disappeared. Then the eclipse started, and the world got darker around them. Colors and weird shadows split across the ground. Reddit user Blakester731 said that he was switching from his light-resistant glasses to the landscape around him. He looked towards the trees, and then finally, the moon was full and only the sun's halo showed behind it. He took the glasses off to see it more clearly, and then he says, they were there. He said that they were like reflections and shadows standing around them. There were tall, dark human shapes surrounding them. There were hundreds of them in the woods, behind the trees, and on the shoreline. He screamed and fell out of his chair. His friends then took their glasses off and shot out of their chairs too. They all grouped together and started moving towards their truck. But just as the moon moved off the sun, the shadow figures vanished. The whole thing had lasted less than 3 minutes, but they got out of there as fast as they could.
gruesome facts.
Hey man, people, they saying they saw different stuff during the solar eclipse, man. That didn't happen like a while ago, like a couple of months ago, if I'm not mistaken. So, Seekers, where were you guys at, man, when that solar eclipse happened? I was outside just trying to look up at it with the glasses, making sure nothing weird was going on, but everybody has a different story.
You didn't know, part 219. This is the last video taken of Steven Weber, who proposed to his girlfriend underwater. While on a trip in Tanzania, the couple were staying in a submerged room. Steven swam underwater to the outside of the room with a note and a ring. The front of the note read, "I can't hold my breath long enough to tell you everything I love about you, but everything I love about you, I love more every day." When he turned the note over, it read, "Will you please be my wife? Marry me?" He then produced a ring from his pocket before swimming out of frame. Tragically, he never made it to the surface and drowned. The Mark Jackson basketball card from 1990 has two unique guests featured in the background. The Menendez brothers can be seen sitting courtside after murdering their parents and prior to their arrest. When the SS Daniel J. Morrell began to sink on Lake Huron in 1966, the crew believed they were just moments from being rescued when they spotted lights that they believed was from another boat. To their horror, they discovered that the lights were actually from the severed stern of their own ship. It was barreling towards them under the power of the ship's engine.
Alright, so these are the insects that's usually on your strawberries.
Come again?
So far we got some mites. And it's pretty normal if you want fresh organic vegetables and fruits, they're gonna have bugs on them. Let's see how much are when you rinse them or wash them off. Ooh, looks like just rinsing them for a few seconds got rid of a lot of the insects. Now I will say, even though you wash them off on the outside, there's still the inside, which I'm sure contains plenty of insects because they burrow themselves in. So even when you wash your fruit and veggies, just know there might be insects inside the fruits and veggies as well. Which is a good source of protein, I guess, right?
You die in this VR game, you die in real life. Yes, this video is not fake. This is genuinely something that was just invented, and you won't believe who by. And it's not as crazy a person as you might think, which kinda makes it even more terrifying. It is almost unbelievable the world's first VR headset that literally kills you if you die in the game has just been created. And just quickly, TikTok are now showing you your lookalike on the app. Just tap share copy more, and if you've got one, it will come up. The man who invented it, Palmer Luckey, is a leader in VR, a government contractor, and the creator of Meta's Oculus headset. So this is the real deal. The headset is hooked up to 3 explosive charge modules that sit above the screen. The charges are aimed directly at the user's forebrain, and should they go off, would obliterate the head of the user. He said he created it because only the threat of serious consequences can make the game feel real to you and every other person in the game. He even says that he wants to work on an anti-tampering model that cannot be removed or destroyed. So if you decide to put it on, there is no going back. Thankfully, this headset is not commercially available yet. Would you play this with any of your friends?
Did you know these?
Hell no, man. They trying to freaking, I saying this VR stuff, man, they trying to make it too weird, bro. Virtual reality is only supposed to be real up until a point. But now, like you said, he wants to make one where it can try to like lock you in, you can't even take it off your head. Don't buy that VR set, Seekers.
Facts. Jesse Pinkman and Walter Jr. were never in an episode of Breaking Bad. Amelia Earhart had a co-pilot when she went missing. Bill Withers wrote the song Ain't No Sunshine while he worked for a factory that built airplane toilet seats. A bear was the first living being to survive a supersonic ejection. Dr. Phil lost his psychology license in 2006, and all guests on his show have to sign a contract that says that they are getting advice from an individual and not a psychologist. Gaming tournaments are now adding clauses to allow judges to penalize players for dirty clothing or terrible odor as much as giving them a full loss. Berlin has still not recovered from its pre-World War II population count. A school principal made a student that was in trouble sit in the basement and read the US Constitution. That student was Thurgood Marshall. He memorized the entire Constitution and became the first ever Black Supreme Court Justice.
Here are some Disney Channel stars that went to jail, but each time the crime gets worse. Starting off, Mitchell Musso, who played Oliver Oaken in Hannah Montana, was pulled over in 2011 for driving under the influence. He was only 20 at the time and was arrested and released on bail. Because of this, his character was written out of Parrot Kings, and his show pranks stars was cancelled. Next up, Adam Hicks, who played Luther on Zeke and Luther and had a starring role in Lemonade Mouth, was arrested a couple times, but most recently for an armed robbery with his girlfriend. His sentencing was delayed multiple times due to mental health evaluations and was eventually given a 5-year sentence. But he's now currently on parole and making music on TikTok. Moving on, Lindsay Lohan was Disney's golden child in the early 2000s, starring in iconic movies such as The Parent Trap, Freaky Friday, and Mean Girls, before getting into trouble with the law. She's been arrested for driving under the influence, drug possession, violating her probation, a theft charge, and has even had a bench warrant out for her arrest. And finally, Phil Lewis, who played Mr. Mosby on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, was arrested and charged for vehicle manslaughter after killing a 21-year-old girl while drunk driving. When they tested his blood alcohol, it was 3 times the legal limit. He was originally given a 5-year sentence, 2 years of probation, and 350 hours of community service, but ended up only serving 1 year due to his work with prison-based theater groups that performed in jails, churches, and schools to highlight the consequences of drug abuse.
That's our childhood, bro. Exposed, man.
Like pandas, right? They'll usually have twins, but since they don't have the facilities to take care of more than one, let's just say Zach might be fine, but Cody getting canceled. Mary Kay might be okay, but Ashley ain't. And that's assuming Big Mama don't roll in her sleep and flatline her first choice. So what Zeus will do is, they'll have twins running shifts with their mom. That way both couples have a chance at life. Whole time the desaturated deadbeat is convinced she only had one. Here are some other horrible mothers of nature. The Harp Seal, because she's actually a good mother. For like 2 weeks. Then she leaves the kid on ice even though it won't be able to swim or really do anything for itself for the next 6 weeks. Posting your child to chase more seal peel is negligent. Doing it in God's icebox is outrageous. And pulling that in polar bear country is just diabolical. The Scorpion, because she literally carries her entire family on her back to protect them from predators. Pretty kind of ironic because if there is enough food around, she'll take some of the brood off her back and have herself a kid's meal. This guy, and I think you know why, because marsupials like quokkas, wallabies, and kangaroos will evict their child out the pouch as a last resort against predators. Logically, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Morally, it puts you in the class of Casey Anthony. This welfare fraud with wings. Not only do they con other birds into raising children they have no parts in, it is scientifically documented that cuckoos will use mob violence to force them to do it. So to be fair, the first thing the cuckoo chick does is yeet every foster sibling out the nest. And when you're born that much of a cockwife, there isn't much hope for your future, the more you know.
During World War II,
well, you know, he said it.
They wanted to take back Ramree Island from the Japanese. So on January 21st, 1945, British and Indian infantry stormed the beaches of Ramree to try to take it back. As soon as they land, they have all this naval artillery support just bombing the crap out of this airbase, but the Japanese do not want to surrender, and instead they give up the airbase that they were on, so the British take that back, and the remaining 1,000 Japanese soldiers started retreating to the opposite end of the island. But the only issue with this particular retreat was they would have to go through 10 miles of mangrove swamp. So that night, as the British are just kind of hanging out in their boats staring at the swamp, they start hearing screams coming from inside of this swamp. And it's Japanese soldiers. They hear gunfire and then silence. And the British are watching this like, do we have troops in there? What's going on in there? What was going on in there is defined by the Guinness Book of World Records as the largest massacre of humans caused by animals. And not just any animal, saltwater crocodiles. Saltwater crocodiles are notorious night hunters. So what probably happened is the Japanese got inside of this mangrove. The crocodiles were immediately aware of their presence, but they waited until nighttime before they started having a feeding frenzy. And at the end of their retreat, when the Japanese did get to the other side of this swamp, only 500 of the 1,000 made it out the other side. And so to this day, people stay far away from Ramree Island because there are so many of these man-eating saltwater crocodiles that have no issue ripping you to shreds.
Whew. Dark time of history. Never knew that, man. Watching these clips always expands my knowledge base.
Is it actually dangerous to tickle a stingray? Tickling a stingray, as depicted in a viral video where a man appears to make a stingray laugh, might seem like a harmless and amusing interaction. However, experts caution against such actions for several reasons. And just quickly, check if you've got any free TikTok tokens to claim. Tap share, copy, then more, and you'll see if you have any. Primarily concerning the safety and well-being of the animal. Stingrays, like many aquatic creatures, are not accustomed to being handled by humans, especially in ways that are unnatural to them, such as tickling. These animals are adapted to life in water, where they have evolved specific behaviors and responses to their environment. Interactions like tickling can be stressful and potentially harmful to stingrays. They may not have the same sensory responses as mammals, and what appears as laughter or enjoyment is likely a misinterpretation of their natural reaction to an unusual stimulus. Furthermore, stingrays have defense mechanisms, including the well-known sting in their tail, which they use when they feel threatened or stressed. Attempting to tickle or otherwise interact closely with a stingray can provoke this defensive response, posing a risk of injury to the person involved. From an ethical standpoint, respecting wildlife and maintaining a safe distance is crucial for the conservation and well-being of these animals.
Top 3 creepy last words
tickle a
were said
stingray.
right before
Simple.
dying. A nurse who wants to remain anonymous said that she had a sweet patient named Ella who started to lose herself to dementia. She started talking to herself. Most of the time it was playful. She would laugh to herself. One day, the nurse walked into her room and she was in a complete panic. She had her blanket pulled up to her chin and she was completely pale. The nurse went to her bedside to ask her what was wrong, and she said, "There is a woman in black looking in my window, and I am just petrified of her smile." The nurse said that it shook her hard. Reddit user Simple Simon 6262 said that when he was a student, he got called in on a stroke patient. She had coded and they were doing CPR. They worked for 45 minutes. But she died. They cleaned her up and called on her family to say goodbye. By the time her family left, she had been both brain dead and without a pulse for over 45 minutes. He said that blood had filled her brain and she was completely gray and had started to smell. Suddenly, she sat up and called for her family. The nurses rushed to get equipment and monitors back on her. She stabilized, said goodbye to her family, and promptly died a second time. Reddit user AJH1717 said that he works in a cardiovascular surgical ICU. He said that they had a stretch of nights where each corner room of their unit reported seeing a black cat walking around. Not a friendly cat either, apparently. The thing was hissing at them. The accounts were so similar to each other that they probably spent half an hour looking for the cat. Then they had security look as well. No cat was ever seen or found. 2 of those 4 patients coded the next day.
Have scientists just proven that we actually live in a simulation? I cannot believe what I'm about to tell you. Trust me, you're going to want to favorite this video because this could actually change the world.
Break it down for us.
Essentially, the new laws of physics support the concept that we are living in a computer simulation. Now please, stay with me. This is all being researched by a man named Melvin Vopson. A name which after this video you're probably going to want to bring up in your next therapy appointment. Claiming that we are all characters in an advanced virtual world. He claims that the physical behavior of information in our universe resembles the process of a computer deleting and compressing code. And do you want to know what that means? So the fucking I. However, it's his next quote specifically that makes me go, "What a clue that perhaps the machines hope we don't notice." You're right, Melvin, mate. These are some bold claims that we are absolutely living in a computer simulation. Bold enough claims to give Matthew nightmares. There is so much more on this, including the fact that he believes symmetry in our world is the clue to everything, saying that all biological life presents some form of symmetry. As well, solids and crystals also have symmetry, because apparently symmetry is the best way of optimizing and rendering a digitally constructed world. And that's why we have symmetries everywhere rather than asymmetries. I'm way too deep down this rabbit hole. What do you think, computer simulation or real life?
See, because what do you guys think, man? We in a simulation. You guys know what my background is, so. Is it true, man? We in the Matrix, bro? We just don't know it yet? We gotta wake up, bro. Rage Against the Machine, man. I'm definitely gonna have to check up that, man. Sounds like a deep rabbit hole, bro. Sounds worth it, though.
This whole Smart Schoolboy 9 situation just got far crazier. I cannot believe I'm actually saying this. So I'm sure you're all very aware of this whole Smart Schoolboy 9 situation. It's going crazy on social media right now. Since this whole thing came out, it's finally been revealed what his face actually looks like without the makeup and weird clothes on. And yeah, it is just like, this guy's a full-on 59-year-old man. What is bro doing? There he is. Still fully dressed up. Now, since this whole thing broke, there has been many people coming forward saying about their interactions with him. Apparently he even has links to the guy who made salad fingers, so that explains it. We know his name appeared in this news article about school uniforms and how they're good. But many people claiming they've seen him out and about dressed like this, chasing them. Apparently he's had multiple run-ins with the authorities who have raided his house before and found very bad things. But these are all just allegations, so no one knows for sure. What we do know is that some of the videos are real, and I wish I could put them here, but I can't because they'll just get taken down. Videos of this guy doing some truly disturbing things and full on chasing people. As I say, I can't post it here, but link in my bio to my full YouTube video if you want to go and watch that. Yeah, there is so many new things coming out about this guy. Apparently he's being looked into by the authorities right now, but who knows. But yeah, any more disturbing stuff I literally can't post here will be on my YouTube. But hit that follow button here and I'll keep you updated with any new things that come out here.
Gruesome fact.
I seen that, man. That's that Smart School 9 videos be trending everywhere on TikTok, YouTube. That's just everywhere, man. That just sounds like a freaking creepy case. I could check out a video, I guess, on YouTube if you guys seek it, if you want me to do that.
You didn't know, Part 225. In 1559, King Henry II of France was participating in a jousting tournament. During a match, he was severely wounded in the eye and brain by a splintered lance. He died of his injuries 10 days later, with his death leading to the decline of jousting as a sport in France. Actress and Playboy centerfold Yvette Vickers was last seen in 2010 after withdrawing from her family in Venice. When neighbor Susan Savage noticed cobwebs on the mailbox, she went inside to investigate. Upstairs, she discovered her mummified body. Lieutenant Colonel William Henry Rankin is one of only 2 known persons to survive falling from the top of a cumulonimbus thunderstorm cloud. He was forced to eject from his jet when his engine failed. It took him 40 minutes to finally reach the ground. During his descent, he suffered from frostbite, and severe decompression caused his mouth, eyes, ears, and nose to bleed.
40 minutes just free falling on top of the cloud.
What you just saw is the United States Coast Guard raiding a high-speed submarine in the Eastern Pacific Ocean moving more than 17,000 pounds of cocaine. On June 18th, 2019, a Coast Guard surveillance aircraft tracked and intercepted the drug-filled narco sub hundreds of miles off the Colombian-Ecuadorian coastline. The video shows a member of the Coast Guard riding on top of the speeding submarine. He then starts pounding on the hatch and demanding it to come to a stop. 3 other Coast Guard members then jump ship and board the 40-foot-long submarine. The video then continues, and you see the presumed trafficker emerging from the submarine hatch with his hands up, surrender. And in total, 5 alleged smugglers were seized on board the vessel and were handed over for prosecution by the United States Drug Enforcement Administration.
Are these your friends, the police?
Now, just watch the full encounter unfold. It's honestly something straight out of a video game.
What's he yelling? I'm trying to say what the hell is he saying. This is something like out of a video game, out of a movie. I just jumped on it. Whew. I have to freaking Donna's being on top of that too.
Is to make sure that these criminals survive long enough to have that justice served.
Terrified they. Then yesterday they released the popcorn bucket, man, for just movie theaters and they popcorn buckets. Crazy. Mito?
This is 17-year-old Michael Dumas. He was on a church trip to Florida with some of his friends. While on this trip, they went to Pompano Beach, and he would be buried in the sand as you see here. He'd soon be unburied and all would be well until later that night when he would wake up in the middle of the night and be itching like crazy and sweating. At first, this would be labeled as an ear infection and he would be sent home with drops, but it would soon be obvious that that's not what it was, as he started to develop these raised, bumpy rashes. And he became pretty lethargic, just wanting to sleep all the time. It got even worse to the point where he was having these big, nasty blisters. And that's when he'd finally be diagnosed with cutaneous larva migrans, which is pretty much dog or cat hookworm. So pretty much these work by the dog or the cat pooping in the sand and contaminating it, and then not long after, these microscopic larvae hatch, and then you step in this contaminated sand and you end up looking like Michael. After all of this, he ended up developing a staph infection as well, and if it's not bad enough just him getting infected, 5 others from this trip got infected with hookworm as well.
Normal looking photos with disturbing backstories, part 2. This Snapchat was the last photo ever taken of Sydney Loof, a woman who was killed by her Tinder date. Her body was cut into 14 different pieces, and when it was brought back to the morgue, it was in 6 different bags. This man was transferring oxygen tanks for 12 boys and their coach. He didn't have enough oxygen for himself, however, and died after losing consciousness in one of the cave's passageways. This man is Issei Sagawa, an actual cannibal from Japan. This photo was taken by a Japanese magazine after he was released from prison for insanity. The man in this photo, Franklin Floyd, married a woman and had custody over her children while she was in prison for 30 days. The girl in this photo is one of her children, whom Floyd kidnapped to start a new life with. He left the other siblings behind, and after this photo was taken, he went to another state, changed both of their names, and claimed her as his biological daughter. Later, he went on to marry her.
World is a weird place.
The former Abercrombie & Fitch CEO was just arrested on serious charges and will probably be in prison for the rest of his life. So this is 80-year-old Mike Jeffries, the A&F CEO from 1992 to 2014. You might recognize him because he's been in hot water before, when an interview resurfaced from 2006. Where basically he said he wants cool, attractive people wearing A&F, and that fat, old, unattractive people can go somewhere else. In 2004, there was a class action lawsuit brought by minority employees who said that they were denied employment or forced to work in the back so customers didn't see them. A&F paid $40 million to settle that case. In 2005, there was some controversy surrounding shirts that read, quote, "Who needs a brain when you have these? Gentlemen prefer tickle bitties," and "Do I make you look fat?" So now let's get to the criminal allegations. Mike Jeffries, along with his partner and another man, were arrested yesterday. It is alleged that from 2008 to 2015, these men operated an international trafficking ring. Jeffries and others paid dozens of men to travel to various locations to hold these parties, basically equivalent to Diddy's freak-offs. And these young, vulnerable men were led to believe that this could lead to modeling opportunities and benefit their career. But when they arrived, all their personal items were taken, including cell phones, wallets, and clothing, and they were required to sign NDAs. Victims were injected with drugs, and even when they could not consent or did not consent, Jeffries and his partner would arbor them personally or use objects. The youngest victim was 19 years old, but it's believed that many, many more victims have yet to come forward. Mike Jeffrey and the other defendants face a minimum of 35 years in prison, which is a life sentence for the 80-year-old Mike Jeffries. However, he is free right now because he paid a $10 million bond.
These CEOs, man. How many more crooked CEOs in the world have to be exposed? You know, it's a long list. Whew. Be careful, man. Gotta keep our eyes sharp out here in these streets.
She must have been out of her head.
Not long after this woman vanished, all hell broke loose. Hi, my name is Ethan, and here's everything you need to know in under 1 minute. 35-year-old Crystal Rogers was living with her boyfriend Brooks Huck and her children. On July 3rd, 2015, Brooks woke up and noticed that Crystal wasn't in bed and her car wasn't in the driveway. 2 days had gone by and no word from Crystal was given, until they found her car parked alongside the Bluegrass Parkway with a flat tire, the keys in ignition, and purse and phone in the passenger seat. Almost immediately, Crystal's family suspected her boyfriend Brooks. What's interesting is 16 months later, Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard, was hunting where an unknown subject fired a shot, hitting and unaliving him. Police are still looking for Crystal and also who unalived her father, and they believe the two cases are connected.
What do you guys think, Seekers?
Weirdest kid toys ever, part 24. So next up we got some bubbles, and it's like a sword. You dip it in like the thing with all the bubble solution crap, and then blah blah blah, you blow your bubbles. But if you take a nice close look at the thing that holds the bubbles, it looks like a nice old dude.
This is why I would never understand fraternities or hazing or anything of that nature. This guy right here, his name was Danny, and he was 18 years old attending the University of Missouri, not knowing that this one particular fraternity hazing event would lead to his life being forever changed. Now, this happened in 2021, and he was forced to drink 1 liter of vodka by himself, and he was seen on CCTV footage being carried downstairs. Now, this had happened after he was being forced to go into a thing of broken glass, leaving him basically in crutches. But this particular evening, he was caught on CCTV footage being carried around onto a couch on CCTV footage, and then he was being dragged into a car, and I think he fell out the car at one point, and then he was taken to the hospital. At this point, he was already in cardiac arrest by the time he had got to the hospital. He was in a coma for a long time. He finally was able to get out of the coma. Unfortunately, he lost his ability to see, brain function, and this is him now, y'all. This is so sad. Please do not let fraternity, hazing, or any of that kind of stuff affect your life, because this is crazy to me. Like, this is not hazing, this is torture.
Creepy games from...
She was spitting facts, man. Like I said, some of those hazings, they're not even hazing. They're just shit seems like it's a torture scheme. Like, people trying to do that to fit in, be cool, man. I'm cool off that. When it gets too extreme, y'all got that. I'm out. I'm my own person, man. I'm not going through all that crazy crap just so a bunch of people I know can accept me. If you can't accept me for who I am, why would I want to be friends with you?
From around the world, R1. South Korea's The Elevator Game, which will supposedly take you to a whole nother dimension. The only thing you need for this game is an elevator, a building with 10 floors, and to be alone. So get in the elevator on the first floor, then push the 4th floor. Once you get to the 4th floor, don't get out. Push the 2nd floor. Once you get to the 2nd floor, push the 6th floor. Once you get to the 6th floor, push the 2nd floor. Once you get to the 2nd floor, push the 10th floor. Once you get to the 10th floor, push the 5th floor. That's when a woman may enter. Don't look at her, don't talk to her. Then push the 1st floor. If you start going up to the 10th floor, then you know it worked. Once you get to the 10th floor and get out, the woman may ask you, where are you going? Don't answer, but you'll know you've made it there because you're the only living thing there. But the hardest part isn't getting there, it's getting back.
Imagine dropping your child at school.
I won't be playing
A
that.
day like any other. But instead of being called to pick her up, you're called to pick up her body. Here's what we know. On Wednesday, the 7th of August, after failing to return home after school, 16-year-old Devaney Null was reported missing. After a later police search of the Overberg High School premises, however, her body was discovered in a storage room. In the aftermath of the disturbing discovery, the school has been closed today, the 8th of August, and counseling services have been offered to both students as well as their parents. A murder case has also been opened, and the investigation has been transferred to the Provincial Serious and Violent Crimes Team. Anyone with information about the crime can contact Investigating Officer Leon, or alternatively the Crime Stop hotline. As always, I'll be sure to keep you updated.
As the renewed search for the missing Beaumont children reached its 4th day today, the brothers who said the prime suspect hired them to dig a grave-like hole at the site in 1966 have come to assist. So in 1966, Robin and David Harkin were paid by the prime suspect in the case, Harry Phipps, to dig a grave-like hole at the former Castlereagh factory that's southwest of Adelaide, not far from the beach where the Beaumont children disappeared. And this happened only days after the children went missing. The Harkin brothers were boys at the time, and they didn't really think anything of it until 2013, when a documentary featuring the missing Beaumont children was aired, and it discussed Harry Phipps as a potential suspect. Phipps didn't become a serious suspect until 2004, when he passed away and his son Hayden made allegations about him and about the day the Beaumont children disappeared. So when the brothers saw this documentary talking about the children and Harry Phipps, they recalled this hole that he paid them to dig just days after the children went missing. Over the years, there have been a few searches at this property, but to no avail. But on Saturday, an excavation of the property was organized by independent MP Frank Pancallo. This new dig is taking place before the government-owned land is sold to developers, and it is due to stop on March 1st. Pancallo said this new search is far more intensive than previous digs by police of the same site. Earlier this week, they discovered a hardened slab that was buried deep beneath the dirt that had never been found before. And then on day 4, the Harkin brothers arrived to assist. Pancallo said the information provided by the Harkin brothers has changed the direction of the dig, saying, quote, "The brothers were able to pinpoint the position they thought they had dug the hole. They provided a lot of useful information. They've given us a lot more clarity on where to dig. This dig is only set to continue through this weekend, so hopefully something is found and the Beaumont children can finally be found and their family and the community can finally have answers about what happened to them."
Justice for them.
The couple behind me are 38-year-old Crystal Turner and 24-year-old Caitlin Schultz. They were a married couple who absolutely loved camping and spending time in the outdoors, but the pair were last seen alive on the 13th of August 2021. They were last seen at a bar in Morb at 9:30 that night. Witnesses who had seen them at the bar claimed that nobody had followed them out that night. After no one had heard from the pair for a few days, Kaylin's father contacted a friend who lived in the area where they were camping, and the father had said down the phone to Kaylin's friend that Cailin and Crystal were a little bit concerned about a creeper dude that had been near their campsite. So the friend went to their campsite in the La Salle Mountains, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, and this was on August 18th, 2021, so a couple of days after they'd last been heard from. And when they did this, they actually stumbled across their remains. And the worst part is they were on the phone with Kaylin's father as they discovered them. And the friend then contacted the police. Both of them were found undressed from the waist down in a creek, and they had both been shot to death. And this case was pretty much cold, and it still kind of is. Now, this one is technically unsolved, and I'll explain why in a minute, but there's actually no way we can confirm who did it. And it wasn't until May 2022 when police said that they had a suspect in this case, and this suspect was called Adam. But however, Adam was reported to have left the state and then taken his own life. Adam had also confessed to another killing in that area as well, and provided police with details that were not known to the public. The motive for the murders still remains completely unknown, and it's still not clear if this Adam character did actually murder them, and I suppose there's going to be no way to prove it because he's dead. But I just think this one is absolutely heartbreaking, and the pair deserved so much better.
Be careful when you're out. You never know, man. Dangers lurk around each and every single corner. Witness that firsthand. You know, if you're expert level seekers, man, you can see through all the edits.
Y'all, the Watts house has to be haunted, because tell me why the new owners of the Watts house are getting a divorce, and allegedly the dad, the husband, put his hands, or was some type of DV situation, or whatever the case may be, towards the wife. This is crazy. So basically the Watts house was put on the market after Shanann, Bella, and Cece were unalived by Chris Watts. It took a while for the house to sell. It was on the market for a long time. I want to say it was on there for $700,000, right? They went ahead and closed on the house, and for what it seemed like, everything was going well. Well, eventually there was a report that there was a call from the wife. They also, mind you, have 2 daughters and 1 son. It's very similar to what Shanann and Chris, had. They were going to have a son, and they also had 2 daughters. Anyways, so there was a call of a domestic complaint, and the wife basically said that she felt like her husband was going to put his hands on her. I think he was, either maybe drunk or whatever the case may be. I'm not 100% sure, but there was some type of domestic dispute in the house. Now, he did get arrested, y'all. He did get arrested. I was able to find proof of his arrest. There is a record. Basically, you got to look into, I believe it was Frederick, Colorado. And yeah, it will come up. But anyways, he did get arrested, and they're selling the house. They're getting a divorce, selling the house, allegedly. Now the house is back on the market. I'm not 100% sure if it's sold to a new person yet or not, but it's back on the market again. Y'all, I feel like this house needs to be torn down and turned into a memorial at this point, because why is it every time they sell this house, it's getting back on the market?
This is a case that has continued to bother me. Sarah Kinslow was born on June 14th of 1986. She grew up with 3 siblings and 2 loving parents in Greenville, Texas. Growing up, she was very musically inclined. She even entered a women's composer competition, and she won first place. She was known to often do solos at her church, and she was just very talented when it came to music. Sarah was also a very happy child. It was well known that she loved the holidays, especially Christmas. Her parents said that she would wake up super early on Christmas morning and go wake up all of her siblings, and she couldn't contain her excitement to the point where she would grab her stockings and then go and jump in her parents' bed to open everything. But as Sarah started getting older, she started hitting a more rebellious streak. When she turned 14, she started staying out late, sneaking out. Like, she was just being kind of a rebellious teenager, and things seemed to get worse when she met 18-year-old Curtis Wayne Bell, and I don't have a picture of him. I'm sorry about that. Sarah's parents obviously did not approve of this relationship. They did not like Curtis, which is understandable because he was 18 and she was 14. Just the age difference that Sarah's parents didn't agree with. Curtis was also known to be a really not a great dude. He was very involved in drugs, and even Sarah's older brother, he was in jail for unknown reasons, and even he said that the inmates had told him that Curtis was not a good person and his younger sister should. But this did not stop Sarah. In fact, this would lead to a lot of arguments in the home, and even one night Sarah started packing up all of her stuff, and she told her parents that one day she would be gone. On May 1st of 2001, Sarah went to school early that morning. Her dad dropped her off around 7:20. They wanted to go early because Sarah had plans to meet with some of her friends. Sarah's dad left and then went about his day. It wasn't until later when Sarah didn't return home from school, and then the school eventually calling saying that Sarah had never been at school, that her parents got worried. They started questioning her friends and asking all of them where Sarah was. None of them knew where she had gone because they had plans that day to skip school and go to a local cemetery, but Sarah had never shown up, according to her friends. It was after this that Sarah's family decided to report her missing, and at first she was considered a runaway, and her parents agreed that she probably ran away. And it wasn't until all of the friends agreed to take a polygraph test, and all of them failed, that things started to get strange. Now, polygraph tests are not that reliable, but still it is worth noting. That's when police brought in dogs, and the dogs did track Sarah's scent for 2 blocks, but then it disappeared, so they believe that Sarah got into a vehicle. We'll get into more in part 2. Give me a couple minutes to get it up. It'll be down in the comments.
What is the craziest thing that someone's confessed to on their deathbed? Well, a deathbed confession made this year solved a 20-year-old cold case. And this is coming from the Heart Starts Pounding podcast episode that's all about cold cases that were solved this year. So this year in West Virginia, a man named Larry Webb was dying. And before he died, he called a nurse over and said he needed to get it off his chest that he killed a woman and her daughter back in 2000. It turns out that back then, a woman named Susan Carter and her 10-year-old daughter Alex were living with Larry while Susan was in a custody battle with Alex's father. One day they just disappeared, but because they were together when they disappeared, police assumed that Susan just ran away with her daughter. But Larry confirmed that that's not what happened. The story he gave on his deathbed is that one day he came home to see that Susan was stealing money from him, and so he shot her. And then panicking, he wanted to get rid of all the witnesses, and that included Alex, her daughter. And to me, the craziest thing in all of this is that Larry had really bad dementia, so when he gave this confession, they weren't really convinced that it was true. But the day after he died, both of their remains were found in his backyard. If you want to hear more on that story and other cold cases that were solved this year, check out the Cold Cases That Were Solved This Year episode of the Heart Starts Pounding podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
It goes to show you, man, people in their last moments, that's when they want to get the truth off their chest, man. Something about their last moments, man. They just want to go, I guess, into wherever they're about to go, into with peace of mind, but the damage is done. Wonder how many other people, man, who are still holding in their secrets. You know what that is. All day, every day.
What is one true crime case that you just can't stop thinking about? I always wonder what really happened to 6-year-old Catherine Corilius. On August 7th, 1996, Catherine, along with her mom Nancy and her brother Chris, were out running errands. Catherine's dad was Paul Corilius, who at the time was the tour manager for John Bon Jovi. That day was Paul's birthday, so they were all out looking for a present for him. They all lived on Elder Circle, which is a small neighborhood near Austin, Texas. When they got back to Elder Circle, Catherine wanted to pick up the mail from the community mailbox and then walk home. The mailboxes were only about 1/8 of a mile from their home, and Catherine had done this a few times before, so her mom let her. Catherine would take the shorter route home, while her mom and brother would take the longer route around Elder Circle. This way, they would be getting home at almost the same time. But once Nancy and Chris got home, with still no sign of Catherine, Nancy sent Chris to go and look for her. But when Chris couldn't find her, Nancy started searching for her by car. Within minutes, they found her laying in the middle of the road on Elder Circle. She was unconscious, but still breathing. According to Nancy, she didn't want to make her daughter lay on the hot pavement, so she picked her up and took her to the hospital. Little Catherine suffered from a fractured skull and never regained consciousness, and sadly, she died later that day. Authorities initially thought that Catherine was a victim of a hit and run, but certain things didn't add up. Where Catherine's body was found was in an unusual spot. Her mom last saw her walking towards their house, but her body was found a little over a mile away from their home in the opposite direction that she was supposed to have gone. Catherine's body was actually found along the route that her mom and brother took to get home, and the autopsy only deepened the mystery. The autopsy showed that Catherine didn't die from a hit and run. Along with her head injury, she also had abrasions on her left shoulder, lower back, right hip, and her knees. The ME found that Catherine had either jumped, fallen, or was thrown from a moving vehicle. One theory investigators came up with was that Catherine maybe tried to hold on to the back of her mom's car on the drive home, but fell off. This would explain the location of where her body was found. But her family did not believe this, so they hired a PI. The PI noted that it was a really hot summer day, and at the time, Catherine's left thumb was broken and in a splint, so it would have been really difficult for her to hold on to anything. And it's likely her mom would have seen her in the rearview mirror. Catherine's family believes she was abducted and murdered. After her death, investigators brought in a canine unit that tracked her scent to a vacant lot 30 yards from the mailboxes, but it was lost after that. This sparked a theory that Catherine was approached by an attacker at the mailboxes, ran into the lot, was caught and thrown into a car, struck in the head, and then was thrown out of the vehicle where she was found. Nancy also stated that it appeared her daughter's body was laid out for her to find. Her hair was smoothed down, her clothes were straight, and her sandals were still on. Unfortunately, there's never been any answers in this case, and it's still labeled a suspicious death. John Bon Jovi wrote a song dedicated to Catherine called August 7, 415. And sadly, in March of 2020, Catherine's brother Chris, who grew up to be a police officer, was tragically killed in a car accident.
Man, it's a mysterious case. It used to be solved.
Hello, true crime earners. It's time for another episode of Coldest Cases by State. Today, South Dakota. Brr. So, this is the kind of strange case of Arnold Archambault and Ruby Bruguier. They were actually part of the Yankton Sioux tribe. They were a happy couple and they had just recently had a baby. And then a tragedy happened on December 11th, 1992. So, the two of them had joined Ruby's cousin, Tracy Dion, for a night of partying. Around 6 a.m. on December 12th, they would come home after the night of partying. But because they were still intoxicated, the babysitter, who was actually Tracy's father, said, "Can you please just come back later?" So they got back in the car. Arnold was driving the car. And just a few short minutes after they left the house, they would get involved in a car accident. The car had overturned. This is not the exact car, by the way. The witness would say that Arnold swerved because the road was icy, and then they flipped into this ditch. So this is when it gets kind of strange. Allegedly, Arnold is able to get out of the car and he fled. Ruby then escapes the car and she flees. Neither of them apparently help Tracy. When paramedics arrived to the accident, they were able to save Tracy. She was honest. She said, "We've been drinking. I have no idea where my friends went." Police would only speculate that because of DWI laws that maybe they fled because they were scared of being arrested. Their families, however, would say no, they wouldn't do that, especially not to their baby. They searched the woods, and they never found this couple. They literally just poofed into thin air. And they conducted these searches for months. They should have been somewhere in the area. This is a still image pulled from Unsolved Mysteries, where this case actually aired. The OG Unsolved Mysteries. So this isn't the real scene. But in March of 1993, about 3 months later, in the ditch just 75 feet away from where the car accident happened, was the decomposed body of Ruby Bruguier. The ditch had water in it, so the next day they pumped out the water, and in that same area they found the decomposed body of Arnold Archambault. It was only like 15-20 feet away from where Ruby was. You know what's stranger? He wasn't as badly decomposed as Ruby was. They also found a tuft of Ruby's hair at the crime scene, which is very odd. The autopsy would show they died of exposure. A witness said they saw Ruby and Arnold at a New Year's Eve party 3 weeks after the accident. That witness took a polygraph and passed. Police say foul play wasn't involved. Were they murdered? how come they're in the same spot as a car accident, months later? This one is so weird, right?
Yeah.
Was caught doing with a corpse. 46-year-old Randall Bird was caught doing inappropriate things to a corpse while he was working his shift as a security guard at the Banner University Medical Center in Phoenix. Randall's job was to bring deceased bodies to the hospital's morgue and slip them into the freezer. But during his shift, co-workers walked in on him and caught Randall inside the freezer with his zipper down, his uniform looking messy, and a body bag open. He was seen almost on top of the 79-year-old deceased woman, and when the workers walked in, he quickly tried to cover the body. The workers said that Randall looked so sweaty and nervous when they caught him, and his excuse was that he had a medical emergency and he almost passed out. His co-workers did not believe a single word and reported the incident. When Randall was interviewed by police a few days later, he basically just said the same story and said that he couldn't remember much of what happened. But not long after, investigators found his DNA on the woman's body, which proves that Randall was in fact doing what we all assumed. He was arrested and now faces multiple charges.
Sick man.
You wish you never knew. Scariest mythical creatures in the world.
Let's check them out.
From Japan. Tick tick.
Tick tick.
From Puerto Rico. Chupacabra. From the ocean. CTHULU.
I thought I was gonna say mermaids or sirens. That's surprising.
From Arizona. Skinwalker. From the ocean. Mermaid.
That makes sense.
From Canada. Wendigo.
Here's some things we were taught growing up that just aren't true. Piranhas, in fact, will not just gobble you up the second you step into the same water as them. They only go after, like, dead things or if you have an open wound. In fact, there have been a total of 0 recorded deaths via piranha. Dogs' mouths are not cleaner than humans' mouths. I feel like this is common sense. Have you seen the shit that dogs eat? A simple Google search will tell you that this isn't true. Lie detectors don't detect lies. They detect if you're stressed, which could mean you might be lying, but it's not a real indication. It's not accurate at all. Fish have memories. Pretty good ones too. They can remember faces and sounds and other fish for up to months at a time, which is better than most of you guys. There was this one study where a catfish was actually able to remember the sound of a human announcing like it's food time up to 5 years after it first heard it. Being cold is not going to increase your likelihood of being sick. Okay, humans made this correlation because when it's cold outside, we tend to go inside, huddle up all together with other humans where more germs can spread around.
These facts are guaranteed to blow your mind. Humans are the only animals on Earth that like spicy food. Potato chips are responsible for the most weight gain out of any other food. The average termite can live over 100 years. By chewing gum after a meal, it reduces your chance of heartburn. Dogs can sniff...
I think they was gonna say dogs could sniff diseases. We've heard that a numerous amount of times, man. Watching these clips with you guys.
Disturbing facts that will ruin your day. Firstly, you know these vacuum toilets that are most commonly used on planes and cruise ships? Well, there have been many reports of them sucking the rectum out of people when they flush. Next, this is just disappointing. 1 in 4 Americans actually believe that the sun rotates around the earth. Now, studies show that the average person will wait 5 months of their lifetime for red lights to turn green. You know when you're watching a movie or TV show and you hear these laugh tracks in the background? Well, most of them were recorded in the 50s, so you're hearing dead people laugh. This will ruin your childhood. The Red Power Ranger, Ricardo Medina, pleaded guilty to killing his roommate with a sword. Finally, you are now closer to death than you were when you started this video.
That Red Ranger Power Pack, man, got to me, man. I remember as a kid, bro, watching the Power Rangers, bro. It's like, there's a sad story behind, like, each of these freaking, like, child actors, man. It's like they hit their peak and it's just downhill for them. you know, was in a child actor, man, or, you know, people in that position. That's crazy, man. Red Power Ranger? What the what's going on, man?
How rare is your body? Let's find out. About 80% of people have stretch marks, and tons of different things can cause these, like pregnancy, weight gain, growth spurts, weightlifting, etc. Anything that stretches the skin. And new stretch marks usually start out as bright red, but will fade to a light pink or white over time. Only 5% of adults have never had chickenpox. Most people who have had chickenpox will be immune to chickenpox for the rest of their life. However, it remains inactive in nerve tissues and can reactivate later in life, causing shingles. Only about 2% of people have something called aphasia, and this is a phenomenon where you're not able to visualize imagery in your head. And this is a little example where if you're asked to visualize a red square and you close your eyes and think, what do you see? A red square, slightly, or do you see nothing? Only 3% of people have something called scoliosis, which is just an unnatural curve in your spine. And doctors still don't know what causes the main type of scoliosis.
The most uncomfortable products ever designed. Firstly, this Cinderella car seat was designed to make children quieter in the car, and it looks normal when there's a small child in it. But as they get older, you have to adjust the headrest. And to do that, it ends up stretching her neck like this. This Minion shampoo bottle looks like it would be good for kids, but for the strawberry scented one, they decided to make it bright red, so it looks like blood is coming out of his eyes. Next, a Spider-Man tissue box sounds like a good idea, and we all know the main Spider-Man pose. But whoever decided to put that on a Kleenex box clearly didn't think it through, because it looks like you're pulling tissues out of Spider-Man's butt. Lastly, in the Children's Hospital, they tried making a pathway that looks like a red ribbon, but instead, it looks like a path left by someone dragging a bloody body.
They really didn't think that through.
Didn't know. Over 80% of the plants in Tomorrowland are edible, and it used to be 100% of the plants were. There's kale, artichokes, lemons, and a lot of different fruits and vegetables, and even herbs and spices. You are never more than 30 steps away from a trash can at any point in any Disney park. The American flags that Disney flies are fake. A lot of them are missing a star or a stripe, so they don't have to follow the codes of flying at half-mast and taking them down. A one-day ticket to Disneyland in 1955 cost $1. But on top of that, rides did have a fee of about 25 to 35 cents. There is no gum sold inside any Disney parks in order to help keep the parks clean. Since Disney World opened, adults have lost over 1.6 million pairs of glasses, and on top of that, every year they find over 6,000 cell phones and 3,500 cameras.
Could you guys imagine, man, that the freaking tickets at Disneyland are freaking $1, bro? I don't know, they probably, right? You know, nowadays, man, it costs $100, bro. Possibly if you get those passes and everything, a bundle package would probably cost over $1,000, man, so... That was just a great price back then, man. We ain't ever getting a $1 ticket to Disneyland ever again, bro. Fun fact, I've still never been, so I don't even know what it's like there.
Something that we have not talked about yet is mermaids. Are they real? Is there any proof of them? Let me tell you. While digging deep on the internet, I found this following video that I'm about to show you. Now, it's very busy and loud, so you need to focus to see what I'm trying to show you. As you can see, we could very, very clearly see a hand of a person that's attached at the knuckles, violently fighting to get out of the net that they were caught in. You don't just catch humans in the water.
Right.
Now look at this hand. This is what scientists think the hands of mermaids look like. And now I'm going to show you the hand from the video, and you can see that they're the same. Not to mention, there are a lot of pictures of dried up mermaid skeleton that are unexplained. Now, what we technically think mermaids are beautiful women and men who swim around all day and sound magical and just safe, happy creatures. But that's not what people think it is. They're thought to look weird, alien-like. And when they make sounds, they screech, they don't sing. They're scaly all over, not just their tail. And they're just overall harsh, evil creatures. I personally believe they exist because 70% of the sea is undiscovered. So how do we think we know they don't? Tell me what you think.
She was spitting, bro. If 70% of the sea is undiscovered, man, you can't rule them out.
We've made it to part 80 of some of the creepiest submechanophobia things I've ever seen in my life. Why do they keep doing things like this? This is the Awakening statue, and it's in Maryland. This is how big it is for scale, just in case you were wondering. It used to be at this little park area until they moved it to the beach, really close to the water. You can go down there and touch it and visit with it, but when it floods, because that place is pretty common for flooding, it is completely, almost completely underwater, and it looks like this gigantic giant is sprouting from the earth. No. Dang, for free? But yeah, that's what it looks like where it is now, and the water, whenever the tide gets really high and it floods a little bit, this thing goes from like normal scary to absolutely get me the heck out of here, I hate this. No. That's what it looks like. Would you be able to go anywhere near that thing when it's flooded, or when it's not flooded, or any way that it is? I would not be able to even look at it from far away. I would cry. It is made from aluminum, which makes it a little less scary. I can just look at it like a big soup can.
Why is no one talking about
Interesting.
Its creepy backstory? This is La Pascualita. The mannequin has been in the window of this Mexican bridal shop since the 1930s. Now look, mannequins weren't even that detailed. Customers noticed that you could see fingernails, eyebrow hairs, and veins on the mannequin. By the way, we're making a Reese's milkshake. Out of all three of these flavor ice creams, which one has to go? Vanilla, chocolate, or strawberry? Comment down below. I want to see if y'all got good taste or not. Now back to
strawberry.
Yo, this is where it gets crazy. The owner of the shop had a daughter named Escuela, and in the 1930s, she was going to get married. So of course, being the owner of a bridal shop, the owner went all out for her daughter, buying her the best dress and setting up everything. Sadly, a scorpion had gotten the daughter's dress, and she sadly didn't survive the sting. People say the exact next day, a mannequin appeared at the front of the shop, and she looked strangely similar to the daughter. Even the dress looked similar. Aw, snap. Look at that. Ooh, sweet baby diabetes. They believe the owner did not want to lose her daughter, so she dipped her in wax to preserve her friend. Do you think this is the shop owner's daughter? And make sure to hit that follow, because tomorrow's story is insane compared to this one.
Think it is.
Scariest
matches
urban
up
legends from every US state. This shows some of the most popular urban legends from every single state across the USA. And as you probably guessed, in this series we're going through all of them, from the most normal ones to the really dark, disturbing ones. So let's kick off part 2. Oh, this is creepy. So the legend goes, a long time ago in New York, in a children's hospital. Children would be in this hospital, and at night, obviously, they'd basically just be left alone. The legend was about someone called Cropsy. Cropsy has a hook for a hand and lurks around at night in the children's hospital. He stalked and unalived these people who he found walking in the corridors at night. Apparently, everybody who goes to camp in upstate New York knows about this legend, so let me know if that's true. This is where things get even more disturbing. A documentary was posted which basically confirmed this was real. Convicted killer and kidnapper Andrew Rand. That's him there in the middle, and it was real. That follow button is going to get crazy, and let me know which state you're from.
Damn, they confirmed it was real and all that?
Facts that
People
will
gotta be
blow your
careful.
mind. Humans are the only animals that enjoy spicy foods. Potato chips cause more weight gain than any other food. It's impossible to hum while you hold your nose. The least interesting day in history was April 11th, 1954. Aldous Huxley and C.S. Lewis died on the same day as JFK. Bigger forks lead you to eat less. The longest living insect is the termite. Chewing gum after a meal reduces heartburn. Dogs can smell cancer. Bees can detect bombs. Follow and comment below which fact blew your mind.
Got a bomb detector in bees, bro?
Around the world.
Use them.
Today we'll be looking at something called the Yaramayahu of indigenous Australian mythology. The Yaramayahu are described to be small frog-like humanoids that have reddish skin. They sit up in the trees and wait for somebody to walk by. They'll jump down and consume the victim's blood like a vampire, and then after consume the entire victim and go to sleep. They'll then regurgitate the victim and repeat the process of consuming them. Eventually the victim will turn into a Yaramayahu. If you're walking around in Australia, make sure you keep your eyes up on the trees.
Okay. Noted when you go in Australia. Look up. Can't never be too careful, man. You know, that's sounds like a folklore story.
Let's talk about another one of the most interesting and terrifying Japanese urban legends, Tsukima Onna, or the girl in the gap. If you've ever been alone in a room and still felt like something was watching you, it was probably Tsukima Onna. This Japanese spirit is said to live between the gaps of physical objects, for example underneath furniture and in between the cracks of open doors. Basically anywhere that there's a little bit of space. Some people say this is also a metaphor for her living between two worlds, the human world and the spirit world. It is best to avoid interacting with her if you think that she's hiding in your room, because if you lock eyes with her, she will ask you if you want to play a game of hide and seek, and if you lose the game, she will drag you back down to hell with her. Unfortunately, the only way to get rid of her is to beat her at her own game. Otherwise, you will always feel as if she's watching you for the rest of your life. Press share, copy link, follow for more, and comment what country I should do next.
Interesting.
You have tiny skin mites that come out at night and do the thing on your face. A 10-second kiss on the lips can pass on 80 million bacteria, some unknown to scientists. Good thing you don't have to worry about that. Certain kinds of tumor called teratoma can cause your body to grow teeth and hair around it. When Eskimo babies have colds, their mother sucks the snot out of their nose with their mouth. Yeah, people who stay up at night are more likely to become psychopaths compared to those who sleep early. So please go to sleep now.
So if you're a night owl, man, you got that trait, you're gonna be a psycho. We got the night owls and the seekers, man. A whole Pennywise house. I wouldn't stay there. You couldn't pay me enough money to stay there.
Question that has long plagued police is, what do we make of the McGrady tapes? So back in like 2001, at a Blockbuster in McGrady, North Carolina, a car drove by in the parking lot and just dropped a tape outside of the building. So employees saw that and they went outside to get the tape and they were like, who would drop a tape off like that? Until they looked at it and they noticed something was wrong. This was the tape that was recovered from the parking lot and it was completely unlabeled. According to the story, they took it to the back room where they were able to play it back, and this was the footage they found. It is a 40-minute video of a person's face looking under what looks like a bathroom stall, and it's completely silent, like straight, uncut 40 minutes of this, and the cameraman just breathing heavily while they videotape this. Management turned the tape over to police, and the strangest part is that a search canine signaled that the tape had traces of human decomp on it. To this day, whoever's behind the McGrady tape is a mystery.
McGrady tapes.
Caught on camera.
Chilling.
What do you think?
Did we see what we actually thought we saw? That's the main question.
Breathe into your nose and out through your mouth. Do it. Ready? Just breathe into your nose and out through your mouth, man. Okay? We're good, man. I appreciate it. Deep breath. So far, were you doing this? I was just fucking. But when you fire at her, I was just. What you did hit her? I slowed. Okay. I don't know. She falls to the ground. She fell. I just kept trying and rolled up and slipped. And it was good. And I just kind of. Okay. Horror movie facts that will.
Your key wasn't even making sense.
Part 2, Coraline. The soundtrack in the movie is a French children choir singing. Surprisingly, they aren't actually singing in French. They're singing in a completely made-up language. If you look on the wall of the dining room in the other mother's home, you'll see 3 portraits of silhouettes. These likely represent the 3 ghost children that appear later in the film. In the normal world, the boy is sad and has dropped his ice cream. But in the other world, he's happy and his ice cream is perfect. On the back of the chair above where Coraline's doll sits features a small flower-shaped pattern. And this flower is almost exactly like the one on the back of Jack Torrance's chair in The Shining. The Welcome Home cake features a double loop on the O. And according to graphology, a double loop on the lowercase o means that the person who wrote it is not telling the truth. But on the cake, there's actually only one double loop, meaning that Coraline is welcome, but she is not home.
Breaking news, there has been a major update on the unaliving of Tophia Chu's brother, as authorities have now revealed exactly what happened that day. And trigger warning, it is very hard to listen to. This is the vehicle Tophia, her brother, and her mom were in. They were parked in a church parking lot. They're not sure if they were sleeping or just parked there. But around 3 or 4 a.m., a suspect walked up to the vehicle. They don't know if this was targeted or if he was just trying to take the car. He ended up cueing her brother and her mom and walked around to the passenger side of the vehicle and tried to pull out Tophia, who was able to get away. The suspect then got in the vehicle and started fleeing with her brother, who was unalived, and her mom, who was injured in the backseat, both still in the vehicle, and then he ended up crashing into a black Jeep that you see here. The driver of the Jeep then got into a confrontation with the suspect, and a security guard nearby heard the commotion, walked over, things escalated, and the suspect was fatally puked. Tophia's mother was then rushed to the hospital and is believed to be in stable condition, but unfortunately her brother did not make it, and neither did the suspect. Tophia is also physically okay, but obviously very hurt from all of this. Rest in peace to her poor brother, and prayers to her mother, and as any new information comes out, I'll keep you guys updated.
This is one case that still haunts me. The story of the disappearance of Jason Jolkowski is one of the weirdest things that you'll ever read about, and it's haunting because to this day, this mystery has never been solved, so let's take a look at it. So this is Jason Jolkowski. He was born in 1981 and lived in Omaha, Nebraska all his life. And this story takes place in 2001. So on Wednesday, June 13th, 2001, Jason was called into work early. So initially, Jason planned on walking to his job, which was 4 miles away, due to the fact that his car was in a repair shop that day. But he eventually made plans for a friend to meet him at a high school that was nearby. So this high school, Benson High School in Omaha, Nebraska, was only half a mile from Jason's house. Literally an 8-block walk, and that's where his friend was supposed to meet him. So just take a look at this photo. This is the exact route that Jason was going to take to the high school. It's only a 10-minute walk, and keep in mind, he was about to make this walk in the middle of the morning in broad daylight. In a city like Omaha, Nebraska, where crimes like disappearances and murders don't really happen all that frequently. So at 10:45 a.m. that morning, a neighbor saw Jason helping his younger brother with the trash outside of his home, and at some point right after that, he left to go on this walk to go meet his friend. And during this walk, Jason vanished off the face of the earth. So to this day, no trace of Jason has ever been found. There were no remains ever recovered. Nobody has seen anybody that's ever looked like Jason. Nobody reported seeing somebody being abducted on the day that he went missing. Nobody even reported seeing anything out of the ordinary. It's as if he simply vanished literally into thin air. They even checked the security camera footage from the school that he was supposed to be walking to that day, and the security camera videos showed that Jason never arrived. It was somewhere on that half-a-mile walk when he vanished. Now, Jason's parents have suggested that they believe he may have been abducted and killed, but with no body ever having been found, that theory is just really hard to prove. And yeah, it's been over 20 years since this happened, and no trace of Jason has ever been found. That's why it's a case that will haunt me. I mean, it's just scary to think that you could be making a half-a-mile walk in the middle of the day, in the middle of your city, and go missing, and no one will ever even find a piece of your clothing.
That's crazy, man. Just vanishing off the face of the earth. That's like truly one of the most scariest things, man, that could ever happen. No trace, no nothing, just gone. Vanished. Nobody knows. Seekers, if you guys made it with me to the end of the video, you're true seekers seeking the truth. I really appreciate the support. Make sure you guys leave a thumbs up in this video. Also, comment down below. Don't forget to hit that post notification bell so you always get notified when I upload my next videos. You guys are going to catch me in the next one, man. I'm out. Peace, YouTube.